Before you listen, if you enjoy the stories and want to hear more, then please consider subscribing. Most of you listening aren't subscribed, so please take this time to subscribe. Turn on notifications so you'll never miss a story and be the first to hear. You'll also be supporting me. Thank you. I've always loved scoping out deals on Black Friday, so when my dad suggested we hit the stores together this year, I readily agreed. We arrived at the mall super early, settling in with our free coffee and donuts courtesy of the retailers looking to butter up early bird shoppers like us. Even with a relaxed breakfast, I still felt that undercurrent of competitiveness pulsing through the growing crowds. Scoring big savings required strategy and speed with limited coveted items out for grabs. Armed with the circular showcasing prices and aisle numbers, Dad and I made a beeline towards the appliance section when the doors first opened. We weaved through various clusters of shoppers until I spotted it. The last mini fridge left with a bright yellow 60% off tag. At lunch forward, grabbing the box securely as another teenager eyed it ruefully from his position about 10 feet away next to a picked-over shelf. Flashing him an exaggerated shrug and smile, I hefted my prized purchase towards my dad, who gave a thumbs up. We decided to swing through the home goods area to scan for any possible unadvertised deals before heading towards the lengthy checkout lines. I set my mini fridge box down briefly to inspect some marked-down bedsheets when suddenly a tall figure swooped in, swiftly pulling my fridge box away. I gasped audibly, spotting the teenage boy from appliances now clutching my discount refrigerator with a smug grin. Incensed, I firmly informed him that I had picked that unit fair and square and expected him to return it immediately. Rather than comply, the brazen teen had the audacity to stick out his tongue childishly and turn away from me. At that point, I saw my dad making his way over quickly, no doubt responding to my raised voice. Before he could reach us, the appliance thief boy's mother materialized, startling me with the fury radiating from her. With nostrils flared, she stepped threateningly into my personal space, charred fingernails almost grazing my face as she told me to back off her son. I instinctively took a couple steps backwards, struggling to process this extreme overreaction. The boy now hid partly behind his mother's tall frame, peering back challengingly at me with a faint hint of satisfaction twisting up the corner of his mouth. As the woman took another aggressive step forward, I noticed too late the knife clutched and her clenched fist raised up near shoulder level. Time seemed to suspend briefly as my senses heightened, taking in those glinting sharp edges far too close for comfort. I saw the woman's grip tighten, her mouth open as if speaking, but my brain blocked out any capacity to interpret words. My eyes stayed riveted on the knife, now angled downwards, poised to puncture cloth and flesh. All other background noises of the busy store muffled instantly when a firm hand grasped my forearm. My dad had arrived, quickly assessing the threat and pulling me stumbling behind him towards safety. The jarring momentum shocked my system, adrenaline flooding veins as Dad demanded loudly for security. His voice sounded oddly distant but authoritative enough to give the knife-wielding woman brief pause. She made no move yet to pursue us, seemingly weighing options while her triumphant son peeked back around her once more to judge the scene. The smugness had thankfully faded from his expression, perhaps fully realizing only now the severity of brandishing a weapon over a discounted appliance. My senses completely narrowed to focus only on each hurried footfall as Dad guided us deftly through the maze of aisles to a small security office. Panting, I collapsed into a plastic chair pointing towards the general home goods area we had just evacuated. A uniformed guard nodded in understanding as my dad also recounted vivid details between gulps of air regarding the hostile shoppers and glimpsed weapon. Calls crackled through on the guard's radio as he conferred with the team before picking up a nearby landline, no doubt contacting the police to fully handle the escalated incident. In my overwhelmed state, I barely tracked the various procedures unfolding around me. Another guard arrived with small paper cups of water Dad encouraged me to drink to curb the lightweight tremor in my hands. An officer entered at some point to take our full statements, idly flipping through a holiday sale flyer as we recounted the frightful encounter. Eventually, the officer thanked us for the helpful information and promised to follow up once they finished questioning the combative mother and son duo. After giving our contact information, the remaining guards apologized profusely for the close call. They speculated that the pressure of scoring sought-after discounted electronics drives some shoppers to extreme behaviors each Black Friday without excuse. Dad acknowledged their remarks vaguely, keeping a steady hand on my shoulder as we walked slowly towards the exit following an escort for precaution. Outside in the cold morning air, I gulped deep breaths hoping to metabolize the leftover panic hormones quicker. I felt guilt twisting my empty stomach realizing I had put my dad and so many others at risk over a trivial discounted appliance. He assured me the blame lay solely on that volatile woman who reacted so radically to her son's playground bullying tactics. I knew he was right, yet dreaded the lesson about mass consumerism's dark side learned too viscerally that morning. The crowds no longer appeared festive and deal-hungry, but rather a churning mass of potential tramplers fueled by marketers stoking competitive greed. As we climbed silently into his car, rejecting the idea of continuing to shop, flashes of the knife reflected in my memory despite attempts to repress them. I wondered if we would recognize that woman or her smug son if we somehow crossed paths with them on another occasion. Would they pretend not acknowledge what transpired, or perhaps try to somehow justify the unjustifiable? The guessing only amplified my unease, so I cranked up the stereo, allowing the familiar holiday tunes to partially mute my rumination. Dad suggested we grab some hot chocolate and breakfast outside the bustling mall area. I happily agreed, ready to wash away the morning's ugliness and shock under the safety and normalcy restored by his calming presence. We ended up having a nice meal at the diner, chatting about neutral topics, though I suspected the Black Friday violence still ran undercurrent through both our thoughts. When we parted ways for him to run some separate errands, I felt extremely grateful for his quick protective instincts in diffusing an unthinkable situation. Hitting the Black Friday sales has been my annual tradition since turning 16 and getting my driver's license. I'd wake before dawn, pick up friends along the way, and arrive at Walmart to stake out the technology department doors. It became our tradition to scout big deals on the latest gaming items since we spent so much time competing against each other online later. Last year, I scored an epic gaming laptop for hundreds below retail and couldn't wait to one-up my haul this time around. Waiting in the chilly November darkness surrounded by equally enthusiastic deal seekers used to feel festive. But over the years, tensions within the restless crowd seemed to escalate, matching the pitch of big box store promotions. What used to be good-natured chatter about item stock and store maps grew more antagonistic. People would spread false rumors about mysterious unadvertised deals in the most competitive aisles in an effort to misdirect fellow shoppers away from their own targets. Even the free coffee and crawlers' corporate suits offered to keep everyone pacified until opening could no longer fully distract from the restless, negative energy infecting these masses. Still, the chance at once-a-year rock-bottom prices on typically out-of-my-budget electronics kept me returning. I convinced myself, despite the visibly more aggressive atmosphere lately, that chances of getting caught in actual physical confrontation remained crazy low. Even my anxiety-ridden best friend Marie agreed to rejoin me in this time when she heard about a too-good-to-be-true deal on gaming monitors. We stuck close together when they finally allowed the overnight crowds to start funneling inside, trying not to get caught up in the usual pushing and shoving at any bottleneck points. Being younger and more agile than many shoppers gave Marie and I a slight advantage navigating through the growing chaos. We darted down the main walkway towards electronics, moving with focused precision like rookie athletes entering their first championship face-off. Adrenaline flooded my brain when I spotted a small pallet displaying the exact monitors Marie wanted with a few already grabbed by swarming shoppers. My height helped me reach one from the back top that another guy abandoned pursuing boxes lower down. Mary gasped in delight, and I quickly handed her the box with strict orders to get safely back in our core friend group staking out home goods for any hidden manager specials. Clutching my growing pile of video game components, I decided to take another pass through electronics just in case any unclaimed raincheck tickets remained at the customer service booth. You could guarantee hundreds to insane doorbuster deals with those coveted paper promises. Sure enough, I managed to grab the last available one, which entitled me to a wireless controller set for 85% off regular price. By this point, my energy waned considerably from the hours of waiting and navigating the frenzied store atmosphere. I decided to make this my final stop, ready to take my haul up to checkout and relish earning back those pre-dawn wake-up calls with my upcoming gaming luxuries. Pushing my overflowing cart around a tight display corner, I found myself skidding to a stop as sudden screams pierced the air. It took my groggy brain a panicked second to realize the commotion erupted alarmingly close by in the very aisle I just left. Some kind primordial instinct kicked in, and I instantly abandoned my hard-won electronics, sprinting back towards the escalating cries for help. Rounding the corner, I nearly stumbled on to breathe, but quickly steadied myself, gaping in abject horror at the nightmarish scene. Some massive shelf unit had clearly collapsed, leaving mangled bodies contorted everywhere across the tile. I gagged, inhaling the overpowering metallic scent, bile rising in recognition of the sheer volume of blood spilled and anguished wailing. Frozen both mentally and physically, my senses could not fully process the magnitude of harm inflicted by that tragic structural collapse. So many innocent deal seekers now likely clinged to life, or perhaps teetered fatefully near ICU machines, instead of hauling their scored appliances and gadgets home. In the seemingly endless period where I stood immobilized in pulsing chaos, so many swarming questions corrupted rational thoughts. How many injured or killed in this unfathomable disaster? What if I had walked out there just minutes sooner alongside others near the shelf unit's breaking point? Surely someone must be held liable for improperly stacked showroom inventory crashing down on unsuspecting 2 a.m. crowds. No innocent soul deserved their dream Black Friday deals hunting ending under crushing corporate negligence and greed. As the wails of approaching emergency vehicles grew deafeningly loud outside, I finally willed my hollow body back towards electronics. Suddenly the scores of monitors and controllers lost all meaning and appeal with fellow humans irrevocably damaged nearby for no sensible reason. A gruff voice ordered me towards glowing exit signs while quarantine teams mobilized behind curtains assessing casualties and liability. I felt bile rise again, picturing buried folks I'd stood alongside hours earlier obsessing about bargain electronics. Outside, I desperately searched unfamiliar faces for Marie's trusting gaze, needing reassurance I hadn't imagined the horrors. Catching no sight of her pink jacket in the dispersing crowds, panic swelled imagining her tiny frame buried somewhere. Police restrained people trying to re-enter, fearing tarnished Black Friday treasures inside outweighed human lives forever damaged. The media swarmed as the walking wounded emerged wrapped in dusty store blankets, clawing through body bags, not yet banishing our collective denial. In the deafening aftermath, no one could articulate exactly what broke, and who might ever atone for the greed realization dawned far too late. Having recently purchased my first home, I realized my dusty tool supply needed serious upgrading if I hoped to take on even basic handyman projects. Rather than full-price hardware store hauls, I decided to hold out for Black Friday sales to stock up and save. My neighbor Randy, a seasoned DIY guru, caught wind of my plan and insisted on joining me early at the doors, lured himself by rumors of unbeatable doorbuster deals. Given it was my first ever Black Friday shopping attempt, Randy's veteran perspective felt essential to even vaguely understand the game strategies needed for scoring big that chaotic morning. During our short walk over, he covered the basics. Dress in layers, leave the fake purse at home, grab flyers at the entrance to scout gift card giveaways. Approaching the glowing hardware store facade just before sunrise, I grew slightly intimidated by the restless crowds already jockeying fiercely for front row access. Randy assured me the coveted toolkit carts and power tool pallets would get restocked promptly at opening, so position hardly mattered. Joining the pulsing horde, I noticed right away the stark gender divide among fellow shoppers, which Randy dismissed laughingly as standard fare. The women clustered near home good displays, eagerly awaiting markdowns on seasonal kits. My all-male comrades seemed less festive, eyeing the locked front gates with building impatience. Side conversations centered on wish lists full of toys suited for serious construction and destruction plans. No one looked settled in for frivolous shopping despite the acute savings at stake all around on typically inflated supplies. The on-the-store manager appeared suddenly on an elevated scooter, gleefully teasing the men about controlling their explosive energy just a bit longer. His amplified reminders about orderly entrance procedures and sales disclaimers elicited muted macho chuckles. Electric anticipation rippled through the crowd as massive stacks of circulars emerged moments later, detailing the undisclosed overnight markdowns. Randy snatched one, rapidly highlighting special tool bundles and oversized power tool markdowns he insisted we sprint towards first. Scanning nearby denim and flannel-clad figures, I wondered who else may have already dog-eared that exact #jethammer drill page. My eyes landed on one visibly agitated guy shouting aggressively towards the poor manager still smiling atop his ridiculous scooter. As he flailed his beefy arms, the untucked hem of his dingy button-down rose just enough to reveal a pistol shoved sloppily into his waistband. I froze, blinking slowly, praying I somehow hallucinated the deadly weapon strapped to an already volatile stranger. But Randy's sharp gasp beside me confirmed the surreal nightmare unfolding yards away as more restless shoppers took note. A few sheepish guys nearest the armed man shuffled silently away, suddenly very interested in mundane oil change discounts. The manager's perma-grin faded instantly as he too registered the dislodged firearm while lifting his walkie-talkie slowly towards his mouth. Activating those gates to release this powder keg crowd grew riskier each heated moment, but protocol demanded the store honor its bargain promises. With the overheated man still bellowing towards him wavering scooter, the manager ordered the doors unlocked. His defeated tone suggested fate now determined whether holiday commerce cheer might somehow outweigh collective human darkness. I braced instinctively the second the pulsing crowd surged forward as one force towards imagined steals, the only barrier now gone. My overwhelmed senses dimly registered cries of surprise and anger erupting nearby before an ear-splitting blast cut through the frenzy. Whipping my head towards the deafening sound, I watched the irie gunman fire recklessly into thirks of sky, as if attempting to reset order. Instead, he instantly cultivated chaos unmatched in my sheltered reality. Now a stampede of panicked men trampled the hapless manager, tossed instantly from his scooter perch amidst the bedlam. He disappeared under boots and dress shoes, leaving Randy and I staggering aimlessly sideways to avoid sharing his cruel fate. The gunman yelled repeatedly either curses or commands, but all syllables melded nonsensically against my own jackhammering pulse. Randy yanked my stunned body forward without clear direction or regard for mercilessly crushed merchandise and consumers alike. Sheer animalistic self-preservation fueled our uneven momentum past the now wholly insignificant toolkit carts. Some detached corner of my brain acknowledged vaguely there would be no scoring savings today, or possibly ever setting foot near crowded stores again. Stumbling finally into an alley beside the ravaged hardware store facade, my system fought desperately to slow my gulping breaths. Randy braced shaking against cold brick, eyes glazed from some dark glimpse into human nature's bleakest abysses. In our fragile hiding space, screams still echoed alongside shattering glass, no doubt unleashing fresh panic. Distant sirens promised order still many tortured minutes away for the remaining vulnerable souls, now hostages to this morning gone savage. In aftermath details that emerged later, news anchors lamented the record casualties and inexplicable violence. But replaying the scene endlessly in my sleepless mind, I understood too well the savage tension brewing for years beneath trivial traditions. No soul there embody righteous purpose or sane logic once notions of scarcity and stolen bargains infected hearts. We had stood equal parts victim and culpable witness when filing insanity first clicked off that full safety. In nightmares to follow, Randy and I would revisit that cursed morning again and again, imagining infinite ways we might have quelled, redirected, or redeemed the gunman's volatility before the wounds grew too deep. But saner daylight hours reminded me clearly no bystander could shoulder the blame for another's choices to pull triggers, be on himself or scores of innocent fellow sinners. When humanity's breaking point passed prevention, my weary role turned student learning whatever insights sprung from horror. And this veteran now recognized eternal truth, where steady compassion alone might ever soften madness. Thanks for listening in. If you like these stories and want to hear more, then please subscribe and like and support this new channel. We have more stories for you to listen to.